Officers. I work for the InterNIC. Going through the right side. What we're going to do is we'll go through a little bit higher. Is that better? Can you all hear me back there? Okay. What I'm going to do is go through the statistics, how well we're doing, go through some of the customer service, operations, and engineering endeavors, and talk about what's going to happen in the future. First of all, here's the cumulative registrations. These are all the registrations that have ever occurred to date from the InterNIC. And you can see that basically, cumulatively, there's about 6.2 million entries that have been registered over the duration of the InterNIC. Now this kind of goes to net registration growth. This is actually number of domains that have actually been paid and so on. And that turns out to be 4.2 million that are currently in the database as of March. And here's a pie chart giving the distribution. Nets, again, overtaking org, and by a fairly sizable margin now. Number of domain updates per month. We saw a peak in February of 580,000 domain updates performed for that month, and went down a little bit in March, but as you can see, everything just gradually increases. In telephone requests, we had an all-time high in March, and see how many. That turns out to be 88,000 telephone requests performed in that particular month that we actually answered. I'm caveating it, I know. Who is queries per month? This is an interesting number because of the restrictions that were put on FTP access to the zones and so on, that the numbers have actually started to decrease, which I find kind of interesting. Maybe they're finding out that pressing CDs of this information is not as profitable as they thought. Monthly emails sent to Hostmaster. Again, in March, that was a record with over 1.6 million pieces of email sent to Hostmaster. Now, here's one of the things I'm very curious about is basically the number of queries per second that a.root-service.net sees. And as you can see, since September of '94, when I was in about the 100 to 200 range, is dramatically increased and has seen highs around 2,300 queries per second on average in March, gone down a little bit in May. That's because it's only a partial month. And I've seen peaks at 3,800 queries per second actually during daytime. Okay, now go ahead and talk about customer service. We see records on a monthly basis. And one of the interesting things is dealing with name changes to the domains. And there's actually a special group within NSI that handles it called the Registrant Name Change Group. And this past month they had a record of almost 9,000 agreements actually changed. They actually had a record in terms of number of name registered with 408,000. We've seen daytime highs of 70,000 new domains registered in a day. And phone calls answered, again this is answered, not actually put out, is 4,800 actually answered in one day. One of the reasons why there's busy signals and the like is our current facility is packed beyond capacity. In fact, when I go to work in the morning, I thankfully have a four-wheel drive and I could not actually hop the curb and park in the grass because there's no place to park even. There's going to be a new building that's under development right now, and it's scheduled that the call center will be moving in July to this new facility, and they should have plenty of room to grow. To give you an idea of the amount of staff that's handling customer service, is in April and May, is 290 people actually answering the phones, handling templates, and so on. Okay, now I'll move on to operations. Since the last time I spoke, the Who servers have been upgraded to E4500s, Enterprise 4500s, and they're dealing right now about 45 queries per second. As you all know, Whois actually had a little problem about a month ago, and it was actually a problem with file size. And actually, I'm the culprit. When I wrote this stuff about 6 years ago, I never envisioned the files actually getting this big. So they went ahead and made some changes to index offsets, sizes, and everything works now. Email servers have been upgraded as well to E3500s. Just for your information, there's a single IP address that's out there, but all these services are segmented on the backside to clusters of machines that actually handle the specific services behind Big IP, which is our load balancer. We also added another 2,000 feet to our computer room, and right now there's construction underway for another generator and power feed to deal with the anticipated growth. One of the interesting things is Y2K, and there's a lot of effort underway by NSI for remediation for Y2K systems. And I gave a talk at IEPG dealing with the root servers on this about a month ago. And this is very much underway. We have a significant portion of the staff actually working on the remediation, making sure that everything's okay for Y2K. And as problems are found, they're being fixed and put into the baseline. Aside with that, as part of everybody's Y2K implementation, there's a lot of contingency planning going on. Say, what if this occurs? Blah blah blah, and that's underway as well. And they're pretty confident that we're going to be ready. Okay, now on to the registrar-registry split. How many are familiar with what's going on there? Oh, some. Okay. Should I describe it, or should I just say, yeah, this is going to happen? Describe it. Okay. The Department of Commerce has made an agreement with NSI as well, and ICANN's a part of this as well, to split up our functions so that people can share .com. And the registrar is basically the front end of this, where they actually deal with the customer face-to-face. Deal with actual registration-related questions, responses, actually perform the registrations for them. They also hold all the billing information, company information, and so on. The registry, on the other hand, has very minimal information. Basically, it only has information enough to cut its own file, as well as tell which particular registrar actually holds more information for that particular domain name. Amendment 12, there's all these amendments dealing with our agreement with the U.S. government, and Amendment 12 basically is a driver for due dates and when the shared registration system is supposed to be ready. And the most recent date was April 26th, where there were 5 registrars accredited by ICANN that are now in a testing environment for us. On June 25th, a limited number of registrars that have been accredited by ICANN will be able to participate. And by October 25th, NSI needs to show equal access to all registrars, including NSI, of course. The information for this is at the shared registry at www.crsnic.net. It's also known as www.nsiregistry.net. Okay, I basically went into this. Just a little bit more, that the registrar-registry interaction, there's a protocol that goes between the two, and it's an ASCII-based protocol that's tunneled over SSL. The overview of this is at the following URL, http://www.srs.net/documents/srs_overview_o2.pdf. Now, the question is who created it, and there's really NSI is the one that's putting this all together, and there's actually a panel of internet experts that NSI has put together to help critique it, and a number of these people are spoken, so it's certainly not a yes men sort of exercise. Right now, since we're in this testbed status, 4 out of the 5 registrars are currently developing code and testing their systems. None of them are currently live, and it'd be interesting to find when that actually does occur. And I think they're finding, a number of them are surprised how complex this really is. I think there was this idea that it was going to be just a template generator and they just submit the template and be done with it. But there's actually some more things that these people need to do. As many in the list have seen, there's the debate about who is and spammers. FTP access has been more restrictive, although lately I've seen rumors that, or heard rumors that the Business Affairs Office at NSI is becoming less restrictive on who can have access to the zones again. There's a 60-day study period request by the Department of Commerce to all the GTLD server operators to make their, not make their data available. And you saw a notice from Paul saying, indicating that he complied to that and turned off X4F. There's been acceptable use policy placed on the WHOIS output that many of you have commented on. And an interesting mix, another interesting thing is the people who want this data. There's basically two camps that are basically opposed to each other. One being spammers and also speculators, and the other side of the camp being the trademark holders, and which I find fairly interesting. Okay, what's going to happen in the future? Obviously, a split is taking a fair amount of our focus. We're going to have this dual focus of the registrar, both for a user-friendly front end as well as a production back end. We're attempting to do a faster turnaround for the GTLD servers for changes, and have things like zone updates happen more frequently than once a day. And DNS security, as Paul mentioned yesterday, DNS security has some interesting attributes associated with it. It's not really ready for prime time yet. There has to be some protocol changes necessary, and there has to be definitely some additional code changes required before this goes live. And here's the presentation here's the URL of the presentation. And are there any questions?
Hold on. There must be at least one question. Oh, good. A question. Make sure you introduce yourself, Randy.
Randy Bush, Vario. Mark, did you folk participate in the party in Sweden last week?
I'm sorry.
Did you folk participate in the party in Sweden last week?
Yes, I was. I was there.
Any, aside from the cuisine and the company, which were probably quite excellent, do you have any comments on the technical results that you could make?
There were some interesting results, of which Paul received a bug report list that have to be solved. Things like keys and key signing actually went fairly smoothly, even though RFCs aren't quite right yet in terms of, for example, the child key going into the parent, and that may not be a good idea for every child being the main registrants actually having to register with their registry, their public key. It went fairly smoothly, although there was really no way for us to authenticate those keys and make sure that they really were the things that they were supposed to happen. It was a limited test. Things like we found flagged problems with like NXT records and with collisions with the parent zone as well as the child zone. And there's also some possible TCP retries that may be a problem with routes.
Is that going to be made public?
Is there going to be a public report?
I sent a note.
I mean, some people, not I, of course, might have some interest in the protocol details.
Oh, absolutely. The organizers of the note were CC'd along with Paul, and I'm waiting for them to actually put out some sort of meeting minute notes on what actually occurred. Paul.
So when I went to rs.internic.net yesterday to do some work, I was told that I could go off to the networksolutions.com webpage if I wanted to do that, and was reminded that InterNIC was a registered service mark of the U.S. government, but that nevertheless the work was to be done over on this Network Solutions thing, which then offered me all kinds of services not related to what I had gone there for. And when I complained to you in the bar, you said that, oh, well, we have marketing people and they're not under good control. And then I noticed that there was an announcement that there would be a new CEO. And I wonder, is there any early indication of whether the new CEO is going to do a better job of controlling the marketing people?
I've actually met Brett once before, not before he started interviewing for NSI's job, but he impressed me as being a technologist and not a marketeer. So time will tell, and I'm hopeful, like you, Paul, that that this thing will become more engineering dominated as opposed to marketing dominated.
Okay. That it for questions? Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay.